this video, I'm guessing two things about you. I'm guessing that you have children around 4th grade, and I'm guessing that you like reading, or you like your child reading, or they like reading. Either way, you need book recs. I've read hundreds of books to my kids, either through Sonlight, our homeschool curriculum, or through just finding a book that I wanted to read them. All of these books did something for me and my children. Maybe they were just good talking points. Maybe they made us laugh out loud. Maybe they made us cry. Okay, let's be honest. I'm the only one crying. The kids aren't crying, but they're sad, okay? Sometimes they're sad. So let's get into the book recommendations for this video, which is just fun family cozy reads for your middle grader to read to themselves or for you to read out loud. The Year of Miss Agnes is about a school teacher who comes to Alaska and kind of the impression that she makes. You can picture this almost like Laura Ingalls Wilder in that it's like super remote, not a lot of technology, and she's coming there. She's able to connect with the different students where they're at in their life, and it's told from the perspective of one of the students, a little girl. It definitely does give you all the cozy feelings of that connection between student and teacher and the impact she made on all of the students that year. So it's very simple reading. Definitely something that a 4th grader could read on their own, but I did read it out loud. The next one's Caddie Woodlawn. Now, Caddie Woodlawn, I think, often gets put into the same categories like Laura Ingalls Wilder. Caddie Woodlawn's family life is a little different. She has a bigger family with boys and girls. They are not moving around like Laura Ingalls Wilder is. They're in this one house, and I will say it still had a lot of that same frontier fun. There's just some aspects of this I still laugh when I think about the mom in the story, and there's just like the hardworking women and the children and the bravery. It has harder topics like diversity, so there's Native Americans and like the relationship between the Native Americans and the frontiersmen. So all of that I found super intriguing, and it was just a very fun, sweet little story is Caddie Woodlawn. And like I said, just one versus the big series of Laura Ingalls Wilder. The next one's Hank the Cowdog. I have lots of Hank the Cowdog. I think we've bought about 10 of them on Audible, and then we have bought 5 to 10 physical copies. The reason is that we all enjoy listening to Hank the Cowdog. The author, John Erickson, reads the books, and he is so funny, and he sings the songs out loud. It doesn't get any better. So Hank the Cowdog is worth the purchase on Audible. We have re-listened to all the ones we own like multiple times. The kids listen to it regularly. I know the sound of Hank's voice, let me tell you. And this is just such a fun, cozy read. They're set in different times of the year, so I can't say which ones. I don't remember which season they're each set in, but the Hank the Cowdog series is one of the coziest, funniest middle grade series out there, and there are like 80, 90 books in the series, so you won't run out for a while. Like, they are pretty short though, so just a forewarning on that. But this is such a fun series, and it's all told from Hank's perspective, and this is his sidekick Drover, and they just get into so many shenanigans, and the series just gets better and better. If your child might prefer some nonfiction, this is a true story. During the start of World War II, or at least the start of the Americans in World War II, and 1942 in the Pacific, they take off on this plane. They take off from the Honolulu airport, and they don't make it too far. I don't remember how far they make it, but they end up crashing or running out of fuel out above the ocean. And it is vast, right? The ocean is vast, but when they're talking about their odds of survival, were so slim. It's just astounding to me that they survived. But at least one person survives. I won't give away spoilers, but this is a true story. The reason that they know the story is that at least one of them got back to shore. Even for being a true story, and my kids and I read a lot of fiction, I would say that's more our style, right? We like to learn about history through fiction, historical fiction specifically. But this was such a good story, super fast paced, and at the end they have a bunch of photos and stuff, which kind of made it fun. I'm not going to show you the photos because I don't want to give it away. And also not super complicated to read. So they saw sharks, and this is just like a little snippet of information about the shark, just about tiger sharks and how big they can grow. Sorry, it's not wanting to focus, but things like that throughout. So it did make it interesting. They're telling the story of the men on the boat. They're telling the story of the families back home, just very slightly, just to build out that picture. But this was written by Todd Olson. He does like a whole series, and it's so good. Like he is a great writer, and the survival story was very fascinating. I thought much better than the I Survived series. I would recommend this series over that any day. Okay, this one is for the animal lovers in your life. We read Gentle Ben by Walt Morey. It's a little bit older of a book, so if you're like me and you're nostalgic about stories that you read as a child, or just like some good old-fashioned literature from more than 10 years back, Gentle Ben is for you. Gentle Ben is so sweet. It's about a boy in Alaska who befriends a bear. This man captured the bear as a cub, and he's just raised him in his shed down the road with a chain in the shed. And Gentle Ben is very gentle. So the little boy befriends it, starts like feeding him and growing close to him. And it's their story, and it's a really good story. I read this to all my children, but the two that loved it the most are the little boys in the family who could picture themselves in that story. And something that's not on the back is the relationship that Mark has with his parents. I loved that dynamic. I also loved the other side characters in the book, where the local cannery owner, he's befriending Ben. Stories of losses at sea. And it's just like a very interesting close-up view of somebody's life that I have no concept of. That I've never lived in Alaska and been going out on little dinghies and risking my life to make a living. I felt like I learned a lot, and I think the kids learned a lot, and it was told with this really fun relationship as the core of the story. I love books where I'm learning, but I don't even realize I'm learning. I might, but like the kids don't necessarily. The War That Saved My Life is about a little girl who is raised in, I don't know, I don't want to get in trouble on YouTube, but she has a very mean parent figure. And the bombs are falling in London, and so they're sending the kids into the countryside for safety, and she basically sneaks aboard because her parent wouldn't have allowed her to go. So she sneaks and goes, and it is gut-wrenching. I would say I wouldn't hand this to my fourth grader to read, not because I wouldn't be capable, but because it's topics that I feel need to be talked about, not just handed over. That's just me, how I parent. There are certain topics that I would like my kid to read the story, hear the story, but I don't want them doing it on their own. I want to have a conversation. And so that is true of this book. It was really good. It was very hard to read, but also something I want my kids to have a better understanding of. And it still told the story of the Blitz and that whole situation, much like Chronicles of Narnia, just in like giving a small glimpse of that. She goes and lives in the country with a single lady, her and her brother, and the lady lives right near Air Force Base, airfield rather. It's not an Air Force Base, it's just a little airfield. So that is her story, and it was a really great read. Almost to the best one. So I want to say something. I want to give some advice, and I want to tell you that even if your kid is capable of reading these books, there is something to be said for reading out loud to your children. And for so many reasons, and I could make a whole video, I think I probably have, about reading out loud to your kids, but I would not miss out on the joy of that. If any of these books sound fun to you, I encourage you to just read them out loud to your kids, because my kids were listening to them maybe second grade, some were like seventh grade, and they are still great reads for all of those ages. And reading out loud also gave us a chance to connect over the story, talk about the good, the bad, the right and the wrong, and all kinds of things. When you read out loud to your children, it builds a connection, and I highly recommend not handing these over, but experiencing them with your children if you can. So, best book is coming last. Second to last, this book is called The Westing Game. And again, it's a little bit of an older read, but it's so fun. It reminds me of Agatha Christie or, Knives Out. Reminds me of Knives Out, yes. Because it's who is the bad guy? Who is the main mastermind behind this all? That is what The Westing Game reminds me of. And it's a really fun whodunit thing. I'll read you like a little bit on the back. A bizarre chain of events begins when 16 unlikely people gather for the reading of Samuel W. Westing's will. And though no one knows why, the eccentric, game-loving millionaire has chosen a virtual stranger and a possible murderer to inherit his vast fortune. One thing's for sure, Sam Westing may be dead, but that won't stop him from playing one last game. So, he's gone, but he has orchestrated this game, basically, to continue. and it's a really fun, very cozy read. One of my favorite books I've ever read out loud. I read it to my oldest child. I think he was probably in 6th grade at the time. And again, not because he couldn't read it. Sonlight encourages reading out loud up through, I believe, 8th grade in our curriculum. And once they get in high school, they don't have those readers anymore. But honestly, we were very sad when that went away. And if I could change it, I would just go back and read those to him. But anyway, live and learn. So this story is a magical realism story. So it feels like not a fantasy, right? It's not a full fantasy, but there's magical elements, and it's historical fiction with magical realism in it. It is easily my favorite revolutionary time frame book for kids. There's so many more popular ones that, of course, now I can't remember the name of, but none of those compare. Maybe I'll put them across the screen, but none of those compare to the Sherwood Ring. It's such a sweet story. Let me read you a little bit from the back. Peggy Graham is caught off guard. She's a new orphan. She's caught off guard when she first arrives at her family's ancestral estate. Her uncle Enos drives away with her only new acquaintance, Pat, who is a handsome British scholar. And they're leaving Peggy to fend for herself. But she's not alone. The house is full of mysteries and ghosts. Soon Peggy becomes involved with the spirits of her own colonial ancestors and witnesses the unfolding of centuries-old romances against a backdrop of spies and intrigue and of battles plotted and foiled. So basically she's left alone in this big empty house, and she makes friends with the ghosts that are there, but that are her ancestors. And they're telling their own stories, which start as like strangers and become like her great-great-grandparents, I think. I don't remember how many greats up the list, but it is so precious. Talk about a cozy read. Imagine, again, Chronicles of Narnia, the big empty house, but Lucy's making friends with the ghosts. And I am not a big ghost person. I don't read anything with like witches, or like I don't read Harry Potter, any of that. I just don't like it. I don't read it, whatevers. This story, not the same. It's more like they just found a unique way of telling this story with a past and present perspective. And it just, even years later, I love this story. I love it. This is such a good read. If you don't buy a single book on this list, at least buy this one and read it out loud to your children. We still quote it. My son and I still laugh because sometimes I'll just break out and say a line from the book and he'll be laughing because we just created such a bond over this book and the storyline. This is video 1 in a series about middle grade books, 4th grade readers, all the things. Whether you read out loud or you hand these over to your children, I will tell you which one I think you should do when it comes to the different books. If there's any trigger warnings or anything like that, I will definitely tell you so you're not like, what the? But I hope this is helpful, and I hope you enjoy these books. I hope you read some, and I will see you guys again in a video very soon.